I sat in my Manhattan office, watching the Huntington Quarterly Board Meeting livestream on my private server. Rebecca was there, of course, draped in jewelry that technically belonged to my company's collateral holdings, her perfectly manicured hand resting possessively on my ex-husband James's arm. The Huntington group remains strong, James said, though I could see the tension in his shoulders. Our legacy of excellence continues to. Ms. Walker, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. The latest Huntington financial reports are ready for your review. I muted the live stream. Thank you, Sarah, and the trust fund documentation. All prepared. Would you like me to begin the process of freezing the accounts? I thought about last week's charity gala where Rebecca had loudly informed anyone who would listen that my daughter Katie's unfortunate small-town manners must come from my side of the family. Not yet, I said. Let's see how tomorrow's lunch goes first. The lunch in question was at Le Cirque, Rebecca's choice, naturally. She'd insisted on meeting to discuss Katie's upcoming debutante ball, though my daughter had made it clear she'd rather do community service than participate in what she called that antiquated parade of privilege. I arrived early, dressed in what Rebecca would consider quaint business attire from a department store. She was already there, holding court at the best table, wearing an outfit that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Charlotte, she said my name as if it were something distasteful she'd found on her shoe. So glad you could fit this into your, what is it you do again? Something with numbers. Investment management, I replied mildly, taking my seat. Small firm, nothing you'd have heard of. Rebecca waved her hand dismissively. Well, we need to discuss Katie's presentation to society. The Huntington name demands certain standards. The same standards that have your family's company leveraged to the hilt. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together. Excuse me? Nothing, I smiled. Just something I've heard through the investment community grapevine. Whatever rumors you've heard are nonsense, she snapped. The Huntington Group is an institution. Now, about Katie's dress, I've taken the liberty of selecting several options from designers who understand our position. Our position, I repeated. You mean your position as the second wife trying to erase any trace of the first family? Rebecca's face flushed. I'm trying to help Katie overcome her limited background. Really, Charlotte, you should be grateful. After all, what do you know about proper society? You're from, she shuddered delicately, Nebraska. I thought about the files sitting on my desk, about the quiet way I'd been acquiring Huntington debt over the past 5 years. Watching as Rebecca's spending and James's mismanagement drove the company closer to the edge. Tell me, Rebecca, how are the renovations on the Hampton house coming along? The one you put a second mortgage on last month. She froze, her water glass halfway to her lips. How did you know about that? Like I said, investment community grapevine. We hear all sorts of interesting things, like how the Huntington Group's stock has been artificially inflated for the past 3 quarters. James, she called out, and I turned to see my ex-husband approaching our table. Perfect timing, as always. Charlotte, he nodded stiffly. I didn't expect to see you here. Your wife insisted, I said. Something about saving our daughter from her mother's common influence. Now, let's be reasonable, James began, but Rebecca cut him off. She's been making ridiculous insinuations about our finances, she hissed. Tell her she's wrong. I opened my briefcase and withdrew a single document. Actually, I have something for both of you. Consider it my contribution to Katie's debutante planning. James took the paper, his face going pale as he read. This is a notice of call on the Huntington Group's primary loan facility. I confirmed. Effective immediately. Rebecca grabbed the document. Walker Capital Partners. I've never even heard of. She stopped, looking at me with dawning horror. No. Yes, I said simply. That small investment firm I mentioned, it's been quietly acquiring Huntington debt for years, along with the mortgages on your properties, the lions on your art collection, and the loans covering your personal spending. This is impossible, James whispered. The Huntington Group has been in my family for generations, and it took your new wife less than 5 years to spend its way into my control. I signaled for the check. Now, about Katie's debutante ball, I think we should respect her wishes to skip it. After all, proper society isn't about appearances, it's about substance. Rebecca's hands were shaking. You planned this, all these years while I was calling you a nobody. I was becoming somebody who could teach you both about humility. I finished for her. The question is, are you ready to learn? I stood up, smoothing my cheap blazer. We'll have a proper meeting tomorrow at my office. Bring your financial advisors. Oh, and Rebecca. I paused. That necklace you're wearing? It's part of the collateral holdings now. I'll have someone pick it up this afternoon. As I walked out of the cirque, my phone buzzed with a text from Katie. Mom, Rebecca just called in tears about some meeting tomorrow. What did you do? I smiled, typing back. Just reminded some people that you can take the girl out of small-town Nebraska, but you can't take away her ability to build an empire. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying your enemies. It's in making them realize they never really knew their victim at all. The next morning, I arrived at Walker Capital's main office via my private elevator. Unlike the Huntington's ostentatious downtown headquarters with its marble and gold, my building was sleek, modern, and understated. Power doesn't need to announce itself. They're waiting in the main conference room, my assistant informed me. Mrs. Huntington has already demanded to speak to the real owner 3 times. How's her mood? I asked, reviewing the complete financial portfolio I was about to present. She took off her jewelry when asked, but she's wearing what appears to be a new Chanel suit. Bought with credit, no doubt, I murmured. And James? Silent. Pale. Their financial advisor looks like he might be sick. I smiled, remembering all the times Rebecca had commented on my modest lifestyle at school events and family gatherings. Must be so difficult for Katie, having a mother who shops at Macy's, she'd said at last year's Christmas party. Walking into the conference room, I saw Rebecca's eyes widen at my Armani suit, one that cost more than her entire wardrobe but had never seen the light of day until now. Charlotte, James stood up stiffly. We've been reviewing the documentation. And it's clearly a mistake, Rebecca interrupted. The Huntington Group has dozens of investment partners. You can't possibly own controlling interest in your debt. I sat down at the head of the table. Actually, I can, and I do. Shall we review exactly how that happened? I pressed a button, and the wall screen came to life with a detailed flowchart of the Huntington Group's finances over the past 5 years. It started here. I pointed to a date. When you decided to renovate the Manhattan townhouse without proper capital, that loan came through a subsidiary of my firm. Then came the yacht, the art collection, the private jet membership. Standard business expenses, Rebecca protested weakly. Really? Is that what you call the private shopping spree in Paris last month? Or the unauthorized withdrawals from Katie's trust fund to cover your gambling debts? James's head snapped up. What gambling debts? Rebecca's perfect composure cracked slightly. Darling, I can explain. Explain how you've been stealing from my daughter? James's voice rose. Charlotte, I had no idea. Of course you didn't. I cut him off. You were too busy letting your wife erase all traces of your first family to notice she was erasing your fortune too. I pulled out another document. This is a complete restructuring proposal. You have 2 choices. Either accept my terms, including financial oversight and the immediate cessation of all unauthorized spending, or I call in all the loans. Today, Rebecca's hands trembled as she reached for the paper. This is ridiculous. You're just a small-town nobody who got lucky with a good divorce settlement. Actually, I smiled. I'm a small-town nobody who turned that settlement into an empire while you were busy playing society queen with borrowed money. I pressed another button, and the screen showed photos of Rebecca's recent purchases, all tagged with their prices and the overdrawn accounts used to pay for them. That's private information, she gasped. No, that's collateral documentation. I corrected her. And speaking of collateral, we'll need the keys to the Hampton house by Friday. The new terms require liquidation of non-essential assets. James leaned forward. Charlotte, surely we can work something out. For Katie's sake. For Katie's sake? I raised an eyebrow. The same daughter your wife has been trying to turn against me for years? The one whose trust fund is now nearly empty. Rebecca's perfect makeup couldn't hide her growing panic. I was only trying to give her the life she deserves. No, I said firmly. You were trying to erase her mother's influence. Well, congratulations. Now she'll get to see exactly what that influence is worth. I stood up, straightening my designer suit. The restructuring terms are non-negotiable. You have 24 hours to decide. Oh, and Rebecca. I paused at the door. That new Chanel suit, added to the list of unauthorized purchases we'll be discussing. As I left them with their ashen-faced financial advisor, my phone buzzed with a message from Katie. Mom, is it true? About what Rebecca did with my trust fund. We'll talk tonight, sweetheart, I typed back. Over dinner at that little diner you love, the one Rebecca says is beneath the Huntington name. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't in the taking, but in the revealing, in showing people that the power they thought they held was always an illusion. A week later, I sat in my office reviewing the latest Huntington Group restructuring reports when my assistant announced an unexpected visitor, Rebecca Huntington. Gone was the designer wardrobe and perfectly coiffed hair. Instead, she wore a simple dress that actually suited her better than all the luxury brands she charged to my accounts. Your security team made me surrender my handbag, she said, her voice lacking its usual condescension. It's a fake anyway. Turns out most of my designer collection was counterfeit. I know, I replied. The forensic accountants found the receipts from Canal Street. Quite the elaborate scheme you had going, buying fakes while charging the real prices to the company accounts. She sank into a chair, deflated. James filed for divorce this morning. I heard. Right after the board voted to remove him as CEO. I closed my laptop. The interim management team seems competent. They're selling the Hampton house, she whispered, and the art collection. Everything I built. Everything you borrowed, I corrected. There's a difference. Tears smeared her mascara. Why are you doing this? Is it revenge for how I treated you? For what I said about your background? Actually, it's about protecting what's mine, including my daughter's future. I slid a folder across the desk. Speaking of which, here's the documentation about Katie's trust fund. Rebecca's hands shook as she opened it. I can explain. Save it. The money has been restored, with interest. Not from the Huntington accounts, but from my personal funds. I leaned forward. Because that's what real wealth is, Rebecca. It's not about spending money you don't have. It's about building something lasting. How did you do it? She asked quietly. Build all this from nothing. I didn't start with nothing. I started with determination, intelligence, and a small-town work ethic you spent years mocking. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking Manhattan. While you were busy trying to erase my existence from the Huntington legacy, I was creating my own. My phone buzzed with a text from Katie. Had lunch with Dad. He's a mess. Rebecca moved out of the townhouse. Your stepdaughter Caroline called me yesterday, I told Rebecca. Apparently, she's horrified to learn that her trust fund is empty too. Rebecca's face crumpled. I never meant to get caught, to face consequences. That's the problem with living beyond your means. Eventually, reality catches up. What happens now? She asked. Now, you start over. Get a job. Live within your means. I returned to my desk. The restructuring team has arranged a severance package. It's not much, but it's more than I had when I started. When you were just a small-town nobody? She gave a bitter laugh. Exactly. Turns out being a nobody teaches you valuable lessons about becoming somebody. My assistant appeared at the door. Ms. Walker, Katie's here. My daughter entered, looking between Rebecca and me with curious eyes. Gone was the designer clothing Rebecca had insisted she wear. Instead, she was dressed in simple elegance that spoke of confidence rather than show. Mom, are we still on for dinner? That new chef at our diner is amazing. Rebecca stood up, clutching her folder. Katie, I'm sorry. For everything. I know, Katie said quietly. Maybe someday we can talk about it, when you figured out who you are without the Huntington name. After Rebecca left, Katie turned to me. Did you always know how it would end? I knew that truth has a way of surfacing, I replied, and that real power doesn't need designer labels to prove itself. We headed out to our favorite diner, where the waitress knew our orders by heart and the coffee came in thick ceramic mugs instead of fine china. You know what's funny, Mom? Katie said as we settled into our usual booth. All those years Rebecca spent trying to make me ashamed of our small-town background. And she never realized that watching you build something real was worth more than all her fake designer bags. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand, remembering the young woman I'd been, the one Rebecca had tried so hard to erase. That woman hadn't needed a prestigious name or borrowed luxury. She'd had something better. The determination to build an empire strong enough to teach her daughter what real success looks like. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying your enemy's world. It's in showing them that your world was always stronger than theirs.